All right. So we are talking about voting in Virginia. The most fundamental freedom that any country has is the right to vote. One of the first things that happened in Iraq after the United States and other forces drove out Saddam Hussein and his dictatorship in Iraq, the very first thing they did was gave people the right to vote, something they did not enjoy until that point. It's kind of a freedom that we see as the most fundamental freedom, giving the actual voice to govern and control and to rule to the people. Okay. So here at the bottom, okay, let's talk about who is allowed to vote. Okay. What qualification? This is the very bottom, 1, 2, and 3 at the bottom of your notes. Okay. So this is the first one. What's the first qualification for registering? Well, you must be a citizen of the United States. That's number 1. Okay. So in the gray with the arrow, citizen of the United States. You cannot vote in the United States if you're not a citizen. Now, to be a citizen, it happens one of 2 ways. First, you're born in the United States, right? You were born here. Even if your mother is from Germany and she's in Disney World on vacation and she's pregnant, and then she goes into labor at Disney World and you are born in Mickey Mouse's clubhouse, and then she flies back to Germany and you are raised in Germany your whole life, guess what? You're a U.S. citizen because you were born here. All you need is a birth certificate to prove you were born here. Yes?
What if you were born from someone who lives in the U.S., but you were born off the U.S. soil?
That's not the same application, right? You have to be on U.S. soil. Now, they can bring you back and say, hey, they were born over here, and they can give you a birth certificate. But you have to get that certificate saying you were born of someone of a, but that usually means you're also a citizen of that country. And that's how you can get dual citizenship. So that's the first thing you have to be. The other way to be a citizen is something called naturalization. That's where you go through the process of becoming a citizen. You have to learn the language, you have to pass the test, and all that stuff. Okay. The second step is you must be a resident of Virginia and precinct. What does resident mean? What does it mean to reside somewhere? Live. So you have to live in Virginia and in a precinct in Virginia. So a precinct means an area designated for voting. So when you have this written down, I'll show you what I mean. I'm switching chairs. Pick up on the microphone. Ooh, that's short. Okay. For example, live in Virginia, right? You must have residence here. Now, you can live somewhere else as long as you have a house that you claim as your residence in Virginia. And you must be in a precinct. For example, here is Radford. It's divided into 4 precincts. And these are the voting precincts. Like for me, for example, I live in the central precinct, so I have to vote in the central precinct. For me, my voting place is the Baptist Church up on Rock Road. Okay, it's fairly new, been there a few years. That's where I go vote. No matter wherever you live, so you must be inside Virginia and inside a precinct. If you don't live inside a precinct, if you live outside of a precinct, which is hard to do, but for some reason you do, then you have no place to go vote, and so you won't be voting. So you must be a citizen of the U.S., live in Virginia in a precinct, and then, of course, you can just write down the first part, at least 18. You don't have to write down the whole statement. But you have to be 18 by day of election. That means you can register early. You can register when you're 17, as long as you are 18 by the day of the election. So little kids like this cannot vote, but 18 and over, young adults like that, they can. So these are what it takes to vote in Virginia: citizenship, residency, and of course, because of the amendment to the Constitution, you must be 18. Any questions on that? Okay. Flip your paper over, and let's go through the rest of this. This will not take long. Okay. Can I move on? Everybody got this? Mr. Bond, you caught up with us? Are you on the last one? Just write 18 years old. That's what I have to write for the last one. Okay. So let's say you want to register. How do you do that? Well, there's a few places you can register. First, there's a place called the registrar's office. Anybody seen this building? Okay. That's the registrar. The registrar's office is in that building. It is. It's the courthouse. You can go to that building, go to the registrar's office. They'll give you this exact same application you filled out today. You fill it in, you give it back. Okay. Simple as that. You can vote by mail, obviously. You can take this and you can mail it in. You can go to what's called the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. When you get your license, they'll ask you if you want to register to vote, even if you're only 16. My son gets his license in March. And they'll ask him, do you want to register to vote? He'll say yes. Now, he won't be 18, but they'll register him anyways. So when he turns 18, he can vote. And the most common way people are registering today is they can register online. Just go to the website and register to vote there. And that's the quickest and easiest way to do it. Okay. All right, moving on. So we can also look at, and we can predict who will vote. You know, there are thousands, actually, there are millions of people every year who don't vote. We can actually look at those people who don't vote compared to those who do and figure out who's more likely to vote. Well, first of all, education seems to be a factor. It seems to be the more educated you are, the more likely you are to vote. Why do you think that is? Why do you think a higher education leads to more voting? Yes, sir.
Because you'll care more about like what runs in the background behind your life.
Yeah, I like that. You have a greater knowledge of different things. You're going to care more about different things going on. Good. And they can actually prove this. We can look back and look at the 2008 election. And the higher the level of degree or education went, the more number of people voted. They can actually track this. Again, in 2012, if you had less than a ninth grade education, 37% of those people voted. While 81% of the people who had advanced education voted. We can see that difference, yes.
How do you have less than ninth grade education?
This has to do with people who are a little older. My grandfather dropped out of school in the 8th grade and went to work in a factory. You were allowed to do that back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. You can't do that anymore. You can't drop in Virginia. You can't drop out of school until you're 18. But before the states passed those laws, people could drop out early and go to work. Okay, so it doesn't really apply for today and nowadays. Okay, but look at the difference between dropping out and graduating. You're still talking about 38 to 52. That's a big difference. Another factor we can predict of who will not vote is age. It's determined that the older you are, the more likely you are to vote. We're talking 18 and older, not obviously you guys can't vote. Again, we can prove that. Look at the 2012 election. Go away. 18 to 24. 38% of the males, 43% of the females. You can just see those bars going up. Okay. And that's another way to look at it. The line on the bottom, the yellow line is the youngest, while the red line is the oldest group of people. And we can say income. It also shows that the more wealthy you are, the more likely you are to vote. And perhaps this has to do with the idea that you have more at stake with the elections. If you own a big company, and more laws might affect you. However, there is an interesting fact. More people, no matter your age, income, or education, more people are going to vote in a presidential election than in any other election. Why do you think more people vote for president than anything?
Most publicized.
It is the most publicized. Any other reasons why you think more people vote for the president than anything else?
Because they're more powerful than the state.
Yeah, it's the most powerful position in the world. And so people see it as this very important thing. And so some people who wouldn't vote for state, they will vote for president. Just kind of interesting that way. All right. So again, here's it based on income. You can see the more income you have, you can see that line going up as number of voters. Okay. Then you ask the question, if vote is so important, why do people fail to vote? Why do people not vote if it truly is one of the most important things you can do? Well, some people don't vote because they just don't have an interest in it. They don't care. They want to live their life. It doesn't matter who's in government, as long as they can do what they want to do. Some people don't vote because they forget to register. The day of the election comes and they go, oh crap, I'm not registered to vote, and it's too late. Some people think their vote doesn't count. There are 300 million people in the United States. How does my one vote make a difference? And then some people don't vote because they say they're too busy. They have no time in their hands. That's actually a good argument. If you work a 12-hour shift, you go in at 6 a.m. and get out at 6 p.m. and the polling and the poll places close at 7, you may not make it. Okay? So that is a real factor that people have when it comes to voting. Okay. Well, you can't vote. So what does that mean? Doesn't mean you can't participate, right? You can help out with campaigns. You can stay educated about the issues. You can encourage your parents to vote or your neighbors or your friends to vote. And of course, we did a simulation in the classroom for the presidential election this year. What's that? You voted as the country did. You are correct. So just because you can't vote doesn't mean you can't participate. All right, and that's it for the notes today.